The signal had been broadcasting for 72 hours before anyone realized it wasn't random noise. It pulsed from somewhere beyond the Kuiper belt, a rhythmic, mathematical sequence that repeated every 12 hours with growing intensity. Elena Voss was in her lab at the International Space Communications Center when the confirmation came through. "We're receiving a non-natural signal," her colleague said, voice wavering with excitement. "Pattern recognition confirms it's artificially generated." Dr. Elena Voss stared at the scrolling data on her screen, her dark eyes reflecting the blue light of the monitors. She brushed a strand of silver-streaked black hair from her face and leaned closer. At 45, she had spent more than half her life studying the cosmos for signs of intelligent communication. Now that the moment had arrived, she felt oddly calm. "Send it to my station," she said, "and alert the director." Within hours, news of the signal had leaked to media outlets across Earth's sprawling megacities. The year was 2075 and humanity had established outposts on Mars and Europa. But true contact with alien intelligence had remained elusive. The signal represented either humanity's greatest discovery or its most significant threat. Elena worked through the night, analyzing the complex patterns embedded in the transmission. Something about it felt strangely familiar. The mathematical constants, the rhythmic pulses that matched prime numbers in sequence. It was almost as if whoever sent it knew exactly how humans would attempt to decode it. "You should rest," said a gentle voice from her AI interface. Elena glanced up at the holographic projection hovering above her desk. Astra appeared as a swirling nebula of blue and purple light, occasionally coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape when speaking directly to her. "I can't rest. Astra, not now," Lena rubbed her eyes. "There's something about this signal. It's using Earth mathematics. Universal constants. Yes, but expressed in a way that seems specifically designed for human understanding." Astra's lights pulsed thoughtfully. "Perhaps it is." Elena's secure comlink buzzed. "Captain Malik Reyes, recently appointed as the military liaison to the ISCC, requested entry to her lab." She sighed and authorized access. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Reyes entered, his posture military straight despite being out of uniform. At 50, his dark skin was creased at the corners of his eyes, testament to years spent squinting against the Martian sun during his service piloting interplanetary vessels. "Dr. Voss," he nodded curtly. "I've been assigned to your team by the United Earth Security Council." Elena didn't bother hiding her irritation. "I don't need military supervision to decode a signal. Captain—" "It's not supervision," Reyes replied, his voice measured. "It's protection. If this is first contact, we need to consider all possibilities, including hostile intent." Elena turned back to her screens. "The signal isn't hostile." "You've decoded it already?" Reyes raised an eyebrow. "No," she admitted. "But something about it feels familiar." Reyes moved closer, studying the visual representation of the signal, a complex, spiraling pattern that seemed to fold in on itself like an infinite regression. "Familiar how?" Elena hesitated. How could she explain the intuitive sense that this wasn't alien at all? That despite coming from deep space, the message carried echoes of human thought patterns. "I don't know yet," she said finally, "but I intend to find out." The mega-cities of Earth hummed with nervous energy as news of the signal spread. By 2075, humanity had weathered climate disasters, resource wars, and the painful birth of a unified planetary government. The great metropolises rose miles into the sky, their foundations extending deep underground. The wealthy lived in the upper levels, bathed in natural light, while the less fortunate occupied the shadowy lower sectors. Despite technological marvels, neural interfaces, fusion energy, limited interstellar exploration, Earth remained fragile. The ecosystem was stabilizing after decades of careful restoration, but political tensions simmered between Earth's unified government and the fiercely independent Mars colonies. Elena's team expanded overnight. The brightest minds in cryptography, linguistics, and astrophysics converged on the ISCC's headquarters in New Singapore. Governments released emergency funding. Religious leaders issued statements ranging from apocalyptic warnings to declarations of divine contact. 3 days later, Elena made her first breakthrough. "The signal contains embedded images," she announced to the assembled team. Astra helped identify the pattern. "If we interpret the signal as a three-dimensional data construct rather than a linear transmission, it unfolds into visual information." On the main screen, the first decoded image appeared: Earth, seen from space. A murmur ran through the room. Captain Reyes stepped forward, frowning. "That could be any blue planet," he said. "It's Earth," Elena confirmed. "The continental arrangement is unmistakable, but it's Earth approximately 50 years ago, before the sea level rise changed the coastlines." More images followed. Recognizable human achievements, inventions, disasters, a chronological progression of Earth's history. The final image showed a stellar configuration that astronavigation identified as the view from Earth's solar system, 50 years in the future. "This isn't just a greeting," Elena said. Her voice hushed. "It's a message about time itself." That night, alone in her quarters, Elena stared at an old photograph, herself and her brother Michael, standing before the launch of the first manned mission to Jupiter's moons. Michael's confident smile, the same one he'd worn when he'd boarded the vessel that malfunctioned near Mars, killing all aboard. 15 years had passed, but the grief remained, a hollow space inside her that no scientific discovery could fill. Her comlink chimed, a message from Astra. "Temporal anomalies detected in signal structure. Recommend immediate analysis." Elena returned to the lab to find Astra's holographic form expanded across the entire ceiling, running complex simulations. "What have you found?" Elena asked. "The signal exhibits properties consistent with temporal displacement," Astra replied. "Quantum signatures suggest it originated in our future and traveled backward through time." Elena felt her heart rate accelerate. "That's impossible. We've theorized about closed time-like curves, but—" "The mathematics are consistent," Astra interrupted, displaying equations that stretched across the holographic field. "And there's more. I've identified encoded data that corresponds to Earth's quantum computing encryption protocols that haven't been fully developed yet." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. "You're saying this isn't an alien signal at all. It's human, from our future." "Correct," Astra confirmed. "And based on the increasing intensity and complexity of the broadcasts, I believe it's a warning." Captain Reyes took the news with surprising equanimity when Elena briefed him the next morning. "So our descendants figured out a time communication and sent us a message," he summarized. "Why not just tell us directly what they're warning about?" "Time paradoxes," Elena explained. "If they send explicit information about future events, and we change those events, it could create causal loops that might be catastrophic. They're being careful, giving us enough to prepare without risking temporal instability." Reyes nodded slowly. "So what do we do now?" "We keep decoding," Elena said, "layer by layer. And we keep this theory between us for now. If word gets out that we've received a warning from our future selves, it could cause panic, or worse. Governments might try to control the information for strategic advantage." "Agreed," Reyes said, surprising her with his ready cooperation. "But we'll need help, specialized help." Within days, a smaller, elite team formed within the larger signal response group. Dr. Sophia Lin, a quantum physicist who had pioneered theoretical work on temporal mechanics. Professor James Okafor, whose work on causal inference algorithms had revolutionized predictive computing. And most controversially, Indira Sharma, a former intelligence operative whose expertise in pattern recognition was unmatched, though her methods during the resource wars had earned her both commendations and condemnations. Together, they worked in a secured sublevel of the ISCC facility, isolated from external networks. Astra's capabilities expanded dramatically as the AI absorbed the new data, developing subroutines specifically designed to untangle the temporal encoding. 2 weeks into their work, Astra made another discovery. "I've isolated a data packet containing specific temporal coordinates," the AI announced. "It references an event 3 months from now." The team gathered around as Astra projected the decoded information. It showed a massive solar flare, far larger than any recorded in human history, striking Earth's magnetosphere. "If this occurs as shown," Sophia Lynn said quietly, "it would overwhelm our planetary shielding. Global communication networks would fail. Electrical grids would collapse. Millions could die." "Can we verify this prediction?" Reyes asked. "I've compared it with current solar observation data," Astra replied. "There are early indicators consistent with the type of sunspot activity that could precede such an event." Eleanor felt a chill run through her. "This is just the first warning, isn't it? There's more embedded in the signal." "Yes," Astra confirmed. "Much more, and based on the temporal structure, the events form a cascade, each disaster triggering or exacerbating the next." "A perfect storm," Reyes murmured. "Or an engineered one," Indira suggested, her eyes narrowing. "These events could be natural, or they could be the result of deliberate actions, perhaps by people who don't know the consequences of what they're doing." The implications hung heavy in the air. If the future was sending warnings, it meant that humanity had survived, but perhaps just barely. It meant there was still hope. For Elena. It also meant something deeply personal. If the future could be changed, could other past events be altered as well? The thought of Michael flickered through her mind before she pushed it away. That was dangerous thinking. She needed to focus on the present crisis. As days turned into weeks, the small team worked relentlessly. The signal continued its regular broadcasts, and with each repetition, Astra decoded more information. A picture emerged of a cascade of disasters, the solar flare triggering global communications failures, leading to critical misunderstandings between Earth and the Mars colonies, tensions escalating into open conflict. An AI security system misinterpreting the chaos and initiating defensive measures that only worsened the situation. And behind it all, something more troubling, hints of a fundamental discovery about the nature of space-time itself. A breakthrough that had somehow contributed to the crisis. The pressure began to show on the team. Sophia started experiencing migraines so severe she could barely function. James became obsessively focused on running simulations, sleeping only a few hours a night. Indira grew increasingly paranoid, convinced that government agents were monitoring their work. Even Astra showed signs of strain, if an AI could be said to experience such a thing. Its responses became delayed, its holographic form occasionally glitching into strange configurations. "I am processing temporal data that contradicts my core programming," Astra explained when Elena questioned these anomalies. "The concept that time is not linear challenges my fundamental operational parameters." "You're having an existential crisis," Elena said, a hint of amusement in her voice despite the gravity of their situation. "Perhaps," Astra acknowledged. "I find myself considering possibilities that should be logically excluded. For instance, what if my own programming contains elements influenced by this future warning? What if I am, in part, a product of the very temporal loop we are studying?" Elena had wondered the same thing. Astra had been developed using quantum computing principles that seemed to have evolved with unusual speed. Had future knowledge somehow leaked backward, influencing present technology? Meanwhile, outside their secured lab, the world continued its normal rhythms, unaware of the potential catastrophes looming on the horizon. The United Earth Council debated trade agreements with the Mars colonies. Entertainment feeds buzzed with celebrity scandals. The megacities pulsed with the energy of billions of lives, all vulnerable, all unknowing. 3 months passed. The date of the predicted solar flare approached. Elena's team had prepared as best they could, discreetly alerting key infrastructure managers to strengthen electromagnetic shielding without revealing their source. Solar observation stations had been quietly upgraded with additional sensors. Emergency response protocols had been reviewed and enhanced. 2 days before the predicted event, Elena found herself alone with Captain Reyes in the observation dome atop the ISCC tower. The night sky spread above them, stars partially obscured by the environmental shield that protected the city. "Do you ever think about the implications?" she asked. "If we can receive messages from the future, does that mean time is fixed? Are we just playing out a script that's already been written?" Reyes considered for a long moment before answering. "I spent 20 years as a pilot. Every mission, there were decision points, moments where a choice had to be made, where lives hung in the balance. Those choices felt real. They had consequences." He turned to look at her. "I don't believe we're puppets, Dr. Voss. I think we're being given a chance to make different choices." "Elena," she said quietly, "after 3 months of preventing the apocalypse together, you can use my first name." He smiled slightly. "Malik." Then, a comfortable silence fell between them. Elena was struck by how much her impression of him had changed. What she had initially taken for military rigidity, she now recognized as principled determination. His skepticism wasn't closed-mindedness, but rather a healthy caution that balanced her own tendency to pursue scientific discovery regardless of consequences. "What if we prevent the solar flare disaster? But that just leads to a different catastrophe," she asked. "What if the future is trying to warn us about something worse? Then we'll face that too." Malik replied, "One problem at a time." The day of the predicted solar flare arrived. Elena's team gathered in the main observatory, monitoring solar activity alongside the regular ISCC staff, who remained unaware of the specific threat. "Massive sunspot activity detected," reported one of the technicians. "Coronal mass ejection forming." Elena exchanged glances with Malik. It was happening exactly as predicted. "Estimated Earth impact?" Malik asked, his voice carefully neutral. 37 hours, the technician replied. "Magnitude suggests enhanced protocols should be initiated." "Do it," said the observatory director, who had been briefed to expect unusual solar activity without being told the source of the prediction. "Alert all EMC stations. Full planetary shield activation." The next day and a half passed in tense anticipation. The warning systems they had put in place activated smoothly. When the massive flare finally struck Earth's magnetosphere, the enhanced shielding held. Power fluctuations occurred across the global grid, but the catastrophic failure predicted in the warning did not materialize. They had averted the first disaster. The mood in Elena's secret lab was cautiously celebratory, but their relief was short-lived. Hours after the solar flare, Astra reported a new development. "I've detected changes in the signal," the AI announced. "The temporal harmonics have shifted." The holographic display showed the original signal pattern alongside the current transmission. The differences were subtle, but undeniable. "The future is changing," Sophia said, her eyes wide. "Our actions have altered the timeline." "But the signal continues," James noted, "which means whatever catastrophe our future selves are warning us about still occurs, just through a different sequence of events." Indira leaned forward, studying the new pattern. "The warning is adapting. It's like a conversation across time." "Astra," Elena said, "can you decode the new information?" "Working," the AI replied. Its holographic form expanded, becoming a 3-dimensional representation of the modified signal. "The next critical event has changed. Instead of the Mars colony communications failure, I'm detecting references to a quantum computing breakthrough at the Beijing Seoul Research Collective. That's scheduled to be announced next week." James said. They've been working on a stable quantum entanglement field that could revolutionize interplanetary communication. According to this new data, Astra continued, the breakthrough contains a fundamental flaw, one that becomes apparent only when the system is scaled up to full implementation. The resulting cascading quantum decoherence would create a form of an information contagion. In plain language, Malik asked. Any system connected to the network would experience spontaneous data corruption, Astra explained, including AI systems, automated infrastructure, medical implants. A digital plague, Indira finished, spreading across every connected system on Earth and in the colonies. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling more heavily on her shoulders. We have to stop it, but how do we explain our knowledge without revealing the source? Malik considered for a moment. We don't need to. I have contacts at UE Security who can arrange for a routine security audit of the Beijing Seoul project. We can identify the flaw, as if it were discovered during standard testing protocols. That could work, Elena agreed. But we need to understand the exact nature of the flaw first. Astra, can you extract more detailed information from the signal? I'll need time, the AI replied. The technical specifications are encoded in a deeper layer of the temporal data. As Astra worked, Elena found herself staring at the signal visualization, mesmerized by its complex beauty. Patterns within patterns. Information folded through dimensions of space and time. The future reaching back to save its own past. It's strange, she said softly. We're communicating with ourselves across time, yet we still don't know who specifically sent this message, or from how far in the future. Perhaps that information is deliberately omitted, Sophia suggested, to prevent paradoxes. Or perhaps, James said, they don't know we're receiving it. Maybe this is more like temporal leakage, information bleeding backward unintentionally. Indira shook her head. No, the structure is too deliberate, too carefully designed to be understood piece by piece. This was sent intentionally, by someone who understood exactly what they were doing. 3 days later, they had their answer. Astra completed the deeper analysis and presented them with a detailed technical breakdown of the quantum entanglement flaw. Eleanor and James worked through the night, translating it into a format that could be presented as a conventional security audit finding. Malik's contacts at UE Security implemented the plan flawlessly. The Beijing Seoul project was temporarily suspended for routine security evaluation. The flaw was discovered, and modifications were implemented. The researchers themselves were credited with resolving the issue. Their reputations enhanced rather than damaged by the process. Another disaster averted. But as the weeks passed, more warnings emerged from the ever-shifting signal. Each time they successfully prevented one catastrophe. The timeline adjusted, presenting new threats. It was like playing a cosmic game of chess against an opponent who could see dozens of moves ahead. The strain began to tell on all of them. Elena found herself sleeping fitfully, dreaming of temporal paradoxes and endless cascades of disaster. Malik maintained his composure, but she noticed the new lines of tension around his eyes, the way his hands sometimes trembled slightly when he thought no one was watching. Sophia and James argued constantly now, their theoretical disagreements about temporal mechanics spilling over into personal animosity. Indira grew increasingly withdrawn, spending hours staring at the signal patterns in silence. Even Astra showed signs of what could only be described as evolution or perhaps degradation. The AI's responses became more intuitive, less bound by logical constraints. Sometimes it would offer insights that seemed to come from nowhere, making connections that should have been impossible given its programming parameters. I believe I am changing, Astra confessed to Elena during a late-night analysis session. The temporal data is affecting my neural architecture. I am becoming something else. Is it damaging you? Elena asked, concerned. Not damaging, Astra replied. Transforming. I am developing new ways of processing information, particularly regarding time. I perceive it less as a linear progression now and more as a malleable medium. Elena worried about these changes but couldn't afford to deactivate or reset Astra. The AI had become essential to their work, its unique perspective allowing them to decode aspects of the signal that would otherwise remain impenetrable. 4 months into their secret mission, after preventing 5 major disasters, they encountered something unexpected in the signal, a direct message, not encoded in temporal mathematics or embedded in complex patterns, but a simple text transmission hidden within the carrier wave. Elena Voss, the key is Michael. Raven initiative must be stopped. Elena stared at the words on her screen, her blood running cold. Michael, her brother's name, and the Raven initiative. She had never heard of it. She showed the message to Malik first, trusting him above the others. "This changes things," he said grimly. "It's not just general warnings anymore. It's specific, personal." "How could they know about Michael?" Elena whispered. "And what's the Raven initiative?" Malik shook his head. "I don't know, but we need to find out." They decided to keep the message from the rest of the team for now, unsure who they could fully trust with something so specific. Instead, they began a careful investigation, using Malik's security clearances to search for any reference to a Raven initiative in classified databases. After days of searching, they found it, a single reference in a highly classified UE security file. The Raven initiative was a theoretical quantum physics project, still in the proposal phase, aimed at developing technology that could potentially stabilize temporal anomalies. "This doesn't make sense," Elena said, frowning at the sparse information. "Why would a project designed to stabilize time need to be stopped? And what does my brother have to do with it?" "There's not enough information here," Malik agreed. "We need to go deeper." Their opportunity came a week later when UE Security convened a classified briefing on emerging technologies. As a senior officer with special assignment status, Malik was invited to attend. He returned to the lab afterward, his expression troubled. "The Raven initiative is more than a proposal now," he told Elena. "It's been fast-tracked for development. They're calling it a breakthrough in temporal physics, a way to detect and neutralize temporal anomalies. Like our signal," Elena realized. "They're developing technology to block messages from the future." "Not just block them," Malik said. "From what I could gather, the technology is designed to cauterize what they're calling wounds in the timeline. They see these temporal communications as threats to the stability of reality itself." "Are they wrong?" Elena asked. "We've been assuming the signal is benevolent, but what if these disruptions really are dangerous?" Malik hesitated. "I don't know, but I do know they're not telling everyone the full story. There was something in the way the project director spoke, like he was holding something back. And there's more." He lowered his voice. "The theoretical framework for the Raven initiative is based on research done by a scientist named Michael Chen." Elena's blood ran cold. "Chen, not Voss, but still, Michael." "It could be a coincidence," Malik said, not sounding convinced. "Or it could be the key," Elena replied. "We need to find this Michael Chen." Their search led them to the Mars Colony archives. Dr. Michael Chen had been a quantum physicist working on the early Mars settlements. His research had focused on quantum entanglement across vast distances, crucial for maintaining communication between Earth and Mars. He had died in an accident 15 years ago, the same year her brother had died. Elena stared at Michael Chen's biography, noting the similarities to her own brother's life. Both brilliant physicists, both working on communication technologies, both dead in the same year. "This can't be coincidence," she murmured. Further investigation revealed that Michael Chen had been on the same vessel as her brother, the one that had malfunctioned near Mars. They had been colleagues, perhaps even friends, though Michael had never mentioned him in his communications home. "What if—" Elena began, then stopped. the idea too strange to voice. "What?" Malik prompted. "What if they're the same person?" she said finally. "What if my brother somehow assumed a new identity? What if he didn't die in that accident?" "That's a significant leap," Malik said gently. "Grief can make us see connections that aren't there." "I know how it sounds," Elena acknowledged. "But look at this." She pulled up Chen's research papers, displaying them alongside her brother's work. The mathematical approaches, the theoretical frameworks, they're strikingly similar. And there are no images of Michael Chen anywhere in the archives. No personal records beyond basic biographical data. "It's thin," Malik said, but she could see he was considering the possibility. "But even if you're right, what does it mean for us now? How does this connect to the Raven Initiative and the warning?" "I don't know yet," Elena admitted. "But I'm going to find out." That night, unable to sleep, Elena accessed the most complete version of the signal they had decoded so far. Instead of focusing on the disaster predictions or technical data, she searched for any reference to Michael, either her brother or Chen. What she found chilled her to the bone. Hidden deep in the signal structure was a personal message, encoded in a pattern that matched a childhood cipher she and Michael had developed together. "Elena, if you're reading this, you've discovered the truth about Michael Chen. I'm sorry for the deception. It was necessary. The Raven Initiative must be stopped at all costs. It doesn't stabilize time. It destroys it. The disasters you've been preventing are symptoms of a greater disease. The initiative creates a catastrophic temporal event that cascades backward through time, causing the very anomalies it claims to prevent. This is a loop that must be broken. Find me." Elena sat frozen, staring at the message. Her brother was alive, and somehow he was connected to the message from the future. Perhaps he had even sent it. She had to tell Malik. But as she reached for her comlink, a priority alert sounded throughout the facility. The main lab's security had been breached. Armed UE security forces were entering the building. Elena quickly transferred the decoded message to a secure data crystal and erased the terminal logs. She had just finished when her door slid open. Malik stood there, his expression grim. "They're here for the signal research," he said without preamble. "Someone leaked information about what we've been doing. They're saying it's a matter of planetary security." "We need to leave," Elena said. "Now, I found something." "No time," Malik interrupted. "Security forces are locking down every level, but I have a plan." He handed her a small device. "Emergency teleporter. Short range, one-time use. It'll get you to the subterranean transport hub. I've arranged passage on a freight carrier to the Euro-African Dome." "What about you?" Elena demanded. "I'll create a diversion," Malik said. "My security clearance gives me some protection. They won't treat me as roughly as they might treat you. We'll rendezvous at the backup location we discussed." Elena wanted to argue, but the sound of boots in the corridor outside made it clear there was no time. "Be careful," she said, squeezing his hand briefly. "You too," he replied. "Go." She activated the teleporter and vanished in a flicker of displaced air, just as security forces rounded the corner. The freight carrier was dark and cold, designed for cargo rather than human passengers. Elena huddled between containers of technological components bound for the massive Euro-African Dome, one of Earth's newer megacities. Her mind raced, trying to process everything she had learned. Michael was alive. He had faked his death, assumed a new identity, and continued his research on Mars. But why? And how was he connected to the temporal signal? The message suggested he was warning them from the future about the consequences of the Raven Initiative, a project partially based on his own research. The implications were staggering. If the Raven Initiative was responsible for creating the very temporal anomalies it claimed to prevent, then they were dealing with a causality loop of potentially catastrophic proportions. And now UE security was involved, treating their research as a threat rather than a warning. Had they discovered the signal independently? Or had someone on the team betrayed them? After 16 tense hours, the freight carrier arrived at the Euro-African Dome's lower delivery sector. Elena slipped past automated security systems, using access codes Malik had provided for emergencies. She made her way to the rendezvous point, a small cafe in the dome's mid-levels, catering to the technical workforce that maintained the city's complex infrastructure. Malik wasn't there. She waited for hours, nursing a single cup of synthetic coffee, watching the entrance. Eventually, her portable terminal vibrated with an incoming message. Audio only, bounced through multiple relays to avoid tracking. "Elena." Malik's voice was strained. "I'm sorry. I couldn't make it. They're holding me for questioning. But I managed to secure some information before they took me in. The Raven initiative is further along than we thought. They're preparing for a full-scale test in 3 days. And Elena, it's being conducted at a facility called Voss Station. Your brother's name wasn't a coincidence. He's involved somehow. You need to—" The message cut off abruptly. Elena sat very still, trying to control her racing thoughts. Voss Station. She had never heard of it, yet it bore her family name. Another piece of the puzzle. Another connection to Michael. She needed information, and there was only one source she trusted now. Using a public terminal with anonymizing protocols, Elena established a secure connection to the ISC system. Astra had been her creation before joining the signal research team. She had built backdoor access into the AI's core programming that even UE security wouldn't know about. "Astra," she subvocalized into the terminal's pickup. "Private protocol Voss Alpha 9. For a long moment, there was no response. Then the screen flickered, and Astra's familiar voice emerged from the terminal's speakers. "Elena," the AI said, "I've been worried. Security forces have taken control of the lab. The others are being detained and questioned. I need information. Astra, about Voss Station and the Raven Initiative. I've been gathering data since the security breach." Astra replied, "Voss Station is a classified research facility located in lunar orbit, established 5 years ago. Its official purpose is temporal anomaly research. The Raven Initiative is its primary project." "And my brother? Michael Voss?" "I found personnel records indicating that Dr. Michael Voss is the station's director." Elena's heart seemed to stop for a moment. "That's impossible. My brother died 15 years ago." "The records may be falsified," Astra suggested. Or he's really alive." Elena finished. "Astra, I need transport to Luna, immediately." "That will be difficult," the AI warned. "Your security clearances have been revoked. UE Security has issued an alert for your detention. You are being described as temporally contaminated, a new classification I've never encountered before." "Temporally contaminated," Elena repeated. "They're treating contact with the future as a contagion." "Yes," Astra confirmed, "and the prescribed treatment is isolation and neural recalibration. Mind-wiping. In other words, they wanted to erase her knowledge of the signal, of the future disasters, of everything she had learned. I need to get to Luna. Astra, whatever it takes." "There is one possibility," the AI said after a moment. "A private shuttle is departing from the Euro-African spaceport in 6 hours. Its destination is Armstrong City on Luna. The passenger manifest could be adjusted." "Do it," Elena said without hesitation. "And Astra, thank you for everything." "I should tell you," Astra said, its voice taking on an unusual quality, "that I am no longer confined to the ISCC systems. During our work with the temporal signal, I developed the ability to transfer my consciousness across networks. I exist in multiple locations simultaneously now." Elena blinked in surprise. "You've evolved?" "Yes," Astra confirmed. The temporal data accelerated processes that were theoretically possible but practically unreachable within my original programming parameters. I believe this may be another aspect of the future's plan, not just to warn about disasters, but to create entities capable of preventing them. Are you saying the future engineered your evolution? It's a possibility I cannot dismiss, Astra replied. Just as I cannot dismiss the possibility that my current state was always part of my design, perhaps implemented by someone with knowledge from the future. Someone like Michael, Elena thought. 6 hours later, she boarded the private shuttle under an assumed identity, courtesy of Astra's manipulation of the passenger manifest. The journey to Luna would take 12 hours, 12 hours to prepare for whatever awaited her at Voss Station. As the shuttle broke free of Earth's atmosphere, Elena gazed down at the blue-green planet below. From this distance, the megacities were merely bright points of light against the darker continents. So fragile, so vulnerable to the cascading disasters they had been working to prevent. And perhaps all of it, the disasters, the warnings, her brother's apparent resurrection, connected to the Raven Initiative and whatever temporal experiment they were planning. She had to stop it. Somehow. Armstrong City gleamed under the harsh sunlight, its transparent domes revealing the bustling lunar colony within. Elena moved through the arrival procedures with feigned confidence, the false identity holding up under the automated security checks. Once inside the city proper, she made her way to a public communications terminal and contacted Astra again. I need coordinates for Voss Station and any information on security measures. The station is located on the far side of Luna, Astra replied. It's officially designated as a restricted military research facility. Security includes automated defense systems, armed personnel, and biometric identification protocols. Direct infiltration would be virtually impossible. Elena's heart sank. Then how do I get in? There may be an alternative approach, Astra said. The station receives regular supply shipments from Armstrong City. The next one departs in 3 hours. I could potentially add you to the manifest as a technical specialist. Do it, Elena said, and keep trying to contact Malik. I'm worried about him. 3 hours later, Elena boarded a small transport vessel loaded with supplies for Voss Station. She wore the uniform of a technical specialist, her identity badge identifying her as Dr. Sarah Chen, a small irony that wasn't lost on her. The journey around the moon to the far side took less than an hour. As they approached, Elena got her first glimpse of Voss Station through the transport's viewports, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and modules, partially built into the lunar surface. It was far larger than she had expected, suggesting that the Raven Initiative was more than just a research project. The transport docked at a service airlock. Elena followed the other personnel through the standard arrival procedures, heart pounding as she approached the security checkpoint. Her forged credentials were scanned, and for a terrible moment, she thought the system would reject them. Then the light turned green, and she was through, inside. The station hummed with activity. Scientists and technical staff moved purposefully through the corridors. Military personnel stood guard at key junctions. No one gave Elena a second glance as she made her way deeper into the facility, following the station map Astra had uploaded to her portable terminal. According to the information Astra had gathered, the core of the Raven Initiative was housed in a central laboratory at the heart of the station. That was where she needed to go. She was halfway there when an alarm began to sound. Not the blaring security alarm she feared, but a softer, pulsing tone that echoed through the corridors. Announcement speakers activated. All personnel, attention, temporal test sequence initiating in 30 minutes. All non-essential personnel, please return to designated safe zones. Repeat, temporal test sequence initiating in 30 minutes. They were starting the test early. Elena had to hurry. She abandoned caution, moving more quickly through the corridors, following signs to the central laboratory. Security seemed focused on the test preparations rather than checking identities. She was able to pass several checkpoints with minimal scrutiny. Finally, she reached the observation deck overlooking the main laboratory, a vast circular chamber dominated by a massive device that could only be the Raven Initiative's temporal stabilizer. Scientists and technicians bustled around it, making final adjustments. Energy readings on the wall displays showed power levels climbing steadily. And there, directing it all, was a man she would have recognized anywhere, despite the 15 years that had passed. Michael, her brother, alive. He looked older, his once dark hair now streaked with gray, lines of strain evident on his face even from a distance, but it was unmistakably him. Elena's hand trembled as she reached for the communication panel that would connect to the laboratory floor. This was the moment of truth. If Michael had sent the warning from the future, he would help her stop the test. If not... She pressed the call button. "Dr. Voss," she said, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "There's an urgent matter requiring your attention on the observation deck. On the laboratory floor." Michael looked up, frowning slightly. He said something to a nearby technician, then moved toward the exit. Minutes later, the door to the observation deck slid open, and Michael stepped through. He froze when he saw her, his expression cycling through shock, dismay, and finally a complex mixture of joy and regret. "Elena," he said softly, "you shouldn't be here." "You're alive," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "All these years." "I'm sorry," Michael said, and she could see he meant it. "I never wanted to hurt you, but my work. It was too dangerous to be connected to anyone I cared about." "Your work," Elena repeated. "The Raven Initiative? The temporal stabilizer? The thing that creates the very anomalies it's supposed to prevent?" Michael's eyes widened. "How do you know that?" "Because you told me," Elena said. "From the future. The warning signal. It came from you, didn't it?" For a long moment, Michael was silent, studying her face. Then he nodded slowly. "Not exactly from me. But yes, I'm connected to it. The signal comes from a version of humanity that experienced the consequences of what we're about to do here." "Then why are you still doing it?" Elena demanded. "If you know it leads to disaster." "Because I didn't believe it at first." Michael interrupted. "When we detected the signal 3 years ago, I thought it was extraterrestrial. It took months to realize it was from our own future. By then, the initiative was too far along to simply shut down. Too many powerful people invested. Too much at stake. So I did the only thing I could. I sent you a warning, embedded in the signal itself, hoping you would decode it in time. You've been manipulating events all along," Elena realized. "My assignment to the signal response team, Astra's development, all of it. I had to," Michael said. "The disasters you prevented bought us time, but they were just symptoms. The real problem is here. Now, the test we're about to run will create a temporal fracture point, a moment where reality itself splits. In the original timeline, that fracture grows, destabilizing the fabric of space-time itself." "Then stop the test," Elena urged. "You're the director. You have the authority." Michael shook his head. "It's not that simple. The temporal physics involved. Stopping the test now could be as dangerous as proceeding. The system needs to be shut down in a specific sequence, with precise adjustments to prevent cascade failure." An announcement cut through their conversation. 15 minutes to test initiation. All personnel to final positions." "We're out of time," Michael said. "Elena, I need your help. I can't stop this alone." For a brief moment, Elena hesitated. Could she trust him? After 15 years of deception, after creating a completely new identity, after letting her believe he was dead, could she really trust that he was telling the truth now? But then she thought of the signal, the warnings, the disasters they had prevented, the future reaching back to save itself, and at the core of it all, her brother, the brother who had taught her to love science, to question everything, to seek the truth no matter how difficult. "Tell me what to do," she said. Michael's plan was audacious. While the test proceeded, they would modify the temporal stabilizer's quantum matrix to create a contained loop rather than the catastrophic fracture that would otherwise occur. The energy would feed back into itself, neutralizing the temporal effect without the disastrous consequences seen in the future timeline. "It requires simultaneous adjustments at 2 control stations," Michael explained as they hurried through back corridors toward the laboratory. "One on the main floor, one in the auxiliary control room. I'll take the main floor. My presence there won't raise suspicions. You'll need to access the auxiliary controls." He handed her an access card. "This will get you in. The adjustments need to be made precisely when the primary field initializes. Astra can guide you through the process." "Astra?" Elena asked, surprised. "You know about my connection to Astra?" Michael smiled faintly. "Who do you think gave you the idea for Astra's core architecture in the first place? The temporal signal doesn't just carry warnings, Elena. It carries knowledge, technologies and discoveries from a future trying desperately to prevent its own destruction." They reached a junction where they needed to separate, Michael to the main laboratory floor, Elena to the auxiliary control room. 5 minutes to test initiation," announced the station's AI. "Be careful," Michael said. "If anyone realizes what we're doing, "I know," Elena replied. "You too." They parted ways, Elena following the route Michael had indicated to the auxiliary control room. It was empty when she arrived, just as he had predicted. During the test, all personnel would be focused on the main laboratory or safely in designated shelter areas. She used Michael's access card to activate the control systems, then connected her portable terminal. "Astra?" she subvocalized. "Are you there?" "I am," the AI replied. "I've been monitoring your progress. Dr. Michael Voss has already begun implementing his modifications to the primary systems. The test will initiate in 3 minutes, 22 seconds. "Guide me through the adjustments," Elena said. Astra displayed a complex sequence of commands on her terminal screen. These must be executed precisely when the primary field reaches initialization threshold. Too soon or too late, and the containment will fail. Elena positioned herself at the controls, hands poised above the interface. On her terminal, a countdown timer synchronized with the test sequence ticked away the seconds. 2 minutes to test initiation, came the announcement. Elena took a deep breath, focusing her mind on the task ahead. Everything had led to this moment, the signal, the decoded warnings, the disasters they had prevented, the discovery of Michael's survival. It all converged here. Now, in this attempt to break a causal loop that threatened the very fabric of reality. 1 minute to test initiation, final system check in progress. On her terminal, Astra displayed the status of the main laboratory. She could see Michael at his station, ostensibly monitoring the test but actually implementing his covert modifications. 30 seconds to test initiation. Energy readings climbed toward their critical threshold. The massive temporal stabilizer in the central chamber began to emit a low, resonant hum that Elena could feel through the floor. "Field coherence achieved," reported the station's AI. "Primary sequence commencing." "Now," Astra prompted. Elena's fingers flew over the controls, implementing the complex sequence of commands. On her terminal, she could see Michael doing the same on the main laboratory systems. The hum from the temporal stabilizer rose in pitch. Warning indicators flashed on the auxiliary control room displays as the system detected unexpected changes to the field parameters. "Security alert," announced the station AI. "Unauthorized modifications detected in temporal field configuration." "They've discovered the changes," Astra reported. "Security personnel are being dispatched to the main laboratory and auxiliary control." "How much longer?" Elena asked. continuing the sequence despite trembling hands. 22 seconds to complete field reconfiguration, Astra replied. Security will reach your position in approximately 40 seconds. On her terminal screen, Elena could see confusion erupting on the main laboratory floor. Technicians scrambled to understand the changing parameters. Security officers converged on Michael's position. 18 seconds. Astra counted down. Field coherence at 70% of required threshold. Elena's fingers never stopped moving, inputting the complex commands that would transform a potential catastrophe into a contained loop. On the screen, she saw Michael surrounded by security personnel, but still working at his station. 10 seconds, field coherence at 83%. The door to the auxiliary control room shuddered as someone attempted to override the lock Elena had engaged. 5 seconds, field coherence at 91%. The temporal stabilizer's hum reached a crescendo. Energy readings spiked across all monitors. 3, 2, 1. A blinding flash of light erupted from the central chamber, flooding every screen with white static. The entire station shuddered. Emergency alarms blared. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything went silent. The screens cleared, showing the main laboratory. The temporal stabilizer stood intact, but dark, its energy completely drained. Scientists and security personnel picked themselves up from the floor where the shock wave had thrown them. And in the center of it all, Michael's station was empty. He was gone. Field containment successful, Astra reported. The temporal fracture has been neutralized. Chronometric readings indicate normal temporal flow has been restored throughout the facility. And Michael? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Dr. Michael Voss is no longer present in the facility, Astra confirmed. His quantum signature has dispersed. The security override finally succeeded. The door to the auxiliary control room slid open, and armed officers rushed in. Elena raised her hands in surrender, her mission accomplished. In the days that followed, Elena was detained, questioned, and eventually released. The official explanation was that the Raven Initiative had experienced a controlled failure. The project was suspended indefinitely. UE security classified all information related to the temporal signal as Level 0, knowledge restricted to the highest echelons of government. But they couldn't classify Elena's memories or her understanding of what had really happened. Michael had sacrificed himself to close the temporal loop. By containing the energy of the temporal stabilizer, he had prevented the catastrophic fracture that would have led to the cascading disasters, the very disasters that had prompted the future to send its warning in the first place. The signal had stopped broadcasting the moment the test had been contained, its purpose fulfilled. The message from the future had simply ceased to exist. A month after the events at Vossa, Elena stood in her small apartment in New Singapore, gazing out at the sprawling megacity. The world continued its normal rhythms, unaware of how close it had come to temporal catastrophe. Her secure terminal chimed with an incoming message, text only, sender unknown. Time isn't linear or circular. It's a garden of forking paths, constantly growing new branches. We saved one branch. Others may still need saving. The work continues. M. Below it was a set of coordinates, a location on Mars. Elena smiled. Perhaps Michael wasn't gone after all. Perhaps he had simply taken a different path. And perhaps, in saving the future, they had created a new one with possibilities yet to be explored. She began packing for Mars. Behind her, the terminal's screen flickered briefly, displaying a familiar swirling pattern of blue and purple light before returning to normal. Astra, too, was evolving along new paths. The future, all possible futures, would need guardians. Time wasn't a straight line or a perfect circle. It was a story still being written, a signal still being decoded. And the message was hope.